You just finished reading the results of your child's IEP evaluation and something just doesn't add up. Maybe the language feels off, or a recommendation caught you by surprise, or even as you look over the paperwork, you are left thinking, this is not my child. If that sounds familiar, you are not alone. Many families find themselves in this position at one time or another. This video is here to help you clarify what you can do next. I'm Jessica, a clinician, a PhD trained researcher, and I've also been a caregiver. Over the years, I've worked with families across education and healthcare, and I know how confusing and one-sided that process can feel when you don't know the system. That's why I created the Advocacy Table, to help parents and caregivers show up informed, confident, and ready to advocate for what their loved ones truly need. Let's talk about what to do if you do not agree with the IEP and how to approach that conversation in a way that's clear, strategic, and supported by your rights. Section 1. It's okay to say something doesn't add up. It's common for parents to hesitate before speaking up. I often hear, well, what do I know? I'm not the expert. Or maybe I'm just being extra sensitive. But if what you're reading doesn't match what you know to be true about your child, then it's appropriate and necessary to say so. Parents, you are the expert on your child, so don't be afraid to speak up. Research has consistently shown that family input is critical for IEP planning. You see your child in context the school staff may not. For example, if the team says speech services are not necessary, but you observe ongoing challenges with expressive language and social communication at home, that's a meaningful disconnect. I've seen cases where a child was labeled within average range based on a single screener, but a more thorough, pragmatic language assessment, often overlooked, revealed significant needs. That's why your input matters. Section 2. You're allowed to ask for more information. Under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, first enacted in 1975 to ensure all children with disabilities receive a free, appropriate public education, parents are a full member of the IEP team. So you're not just an observer. You can and should ask questions like, what assessments were used? What data led to that recommendation? And were there any notable behaviors observed during testing? These aren't trick questions. They're about understanding whether the decision was based on a comprehensive view of your child or a narrow slice. And here's a practical tip. Keep a running document of your questions and responses. It's important because you might be able to track patterns, and it reduces the pressure that you may feel trying to remember all these details during a meeting. Section 3. When to consider the IEE. If you've reviewed the report, asked questions, and still feel something isn't right, you might consider requesting an independent educational evaluation, or IEE. An IEE is essentially a second opinion from a qualified professional not employed by the school district. According to IDEA regulations, parents have the right to request an IEE at public expense if they disagree with the school's evaluation. You do not need to file a formal complaint or argue with the team. A written request is sufficient. Typically, the school will either agree to fund the IEE or initiate a due process hearing to deny it, though the latter is rare due to time and cost involved. In one case, a student was evaluated for ADHD, but the school only used classroom observations. There were no behavioral rating scales. The parent requested an IEE from a psychologist specializing in executive functioning, and that outside evaluation uncovered significant working memory and organizational challenges, which led to a huge revision of the IEP. Section 4. What happens after you get an IEE? After receiving the IEE results, and remember, that's the second opinion, you can request a follow-up IEP meeting to review those findings. You might say, I'd like to discuss how the IEE results should be reflected in the IEP. There are two main outcomes. The IEE confirms the school's evaluation, and this can be disappointing, but it provides clarity and reassurance that the process was thorough. Or the IEE introduces new information, different scores, recommendations, or even a diagnosis the school missed. In this case, the IEP team is required to consider those findings. Now, they aren't obligated to implement every recommendation, but they must provide a clear rationale for their decisions. In my experience, most teams take IEEs very seriously and will adjust the IEP when warranted. But here's the thing, 9 out of 10 times, the school wants what's best for your child. Section 5. How to make the request. If you decide to move forward, here's a step-by-step approach that you can take. Step 1. Email the IEP coordinator or special education lead. This may also be the child psychologist. You could say something like, I'm writing to formally request an independent educational evaluation at public expense in accordance with IDEA Section 300.502. I do not believe that this current evaluation fully reflects my child's needs. And just so you know, you don't have to explain your reasoning or specify which parts you disagree with. Making the request is enough. Step 2. Keep a copy of all emails and track that timeline. Most districts are supposed to respond within 10 business days. Section 3. Once approved, ask for a list of qualified providers. You can also request a provider not on the list if they meet the district's criteria. Step 4. When the IEE is complete, request a meeting to review the findings. Be sure to get a copy of the full report ahead of time. That way you can review before the meeting. Section 6. If the team pushes back. If the district refuses the IEE or doesn't respond, that means they're out of compliance with federal law. You can request a mediation or file a state complaint. But before escalating, consider reaching out to a parent advocate or a consulting group like the Advocacy Table, someone who understands how to interpret evaluations, communicate with school teams, and help you navigate the process based on your state's policies. Some states allow you to pay for the IEE yourself and seek reimbursement later. If you pursue that route, just remember to document every conversation and keep those receipts. Section 7. My final thoughts. This process isn't about proving someone wrong. It's about ensuring that decisions about your child are based on accurate, complete information. If something feels off, it's okay to say so. If you're unsure what you're allowed to ask anyway. And if you need another opinion, request one. That's not confrontation. That's what advocacy is all about. So if you're considering an IEE and want guidance on what to say or who to contact, I'll be covering that in detail in my next video. You can also download the checklist I've created to help you keep track of all of your steps. If you found this video helpful, feel free to share it with another parent who might be in a similar situation. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.